Josh Green here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by now 2-0 heavyweight Arlo Stephens. How are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Very good. How yourself?
Yeah, really good, mate. I mean, last time we spoke was 2 days out from the professional debut. You've now got two fights under the belt. Happy with how things are going so far?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't too happy with my debut. Felt a bit laborious and it felt a bit anticlimactic, I think. But I feel like the second fight went perfectly. So yeah, happy where we are now.
We'll talk a little bit about that debut in a bit more depth in a second, but you say sort of, was it a case of putting that out the mind and sort of getting the job done and proving to yourself that you can really hit those heavy shots in your second fight?
Yeah, it was just about being calm and remembering that I've had like 40 fights before, so it's just because it was on the pro stage, it didn't actually change the act that I was doing. If you know what I mean?
What have you noticed as the sort of major differences from stepping into a professional environment? Obviously, GBM's now a TV environment with DAZN involved. What are the major differences?
Um, there's not really too much. I mean, I suppose it's just around the build up. Um, Around the fact that you do weigh-ins and press conferences, and you know who you fight in a few weeks in advance, so you can prepare for them sort of specifically. Um, but apart from that, I suppose it's just about it'll sound daft, but people caring. In the amateurs, you fight week in, week out, so eventually people stop coming to watch because they've all seen you fight 20, 30 times before anyway. But then you enter the pro game, and it's like everyone cares. There's cameras everywhere. There's thousands on social media, so yeah, I suppose that's the biggest difference.
What sort of support have you had at that show, those shows? I know the debut was obviously up in Rotherham, and that was a little bit further afield down in Coventry for the second fight. Have you had people, friends, and family and supporters turn up?
Yeah, so for the debut, because it was obviously Rotherham, so it's not too far away from New York, maybe about an hour and a half. I had about 150 people come and support, so that was incredible. And it was friends, family, supporters, people that I've mixed with in the past, sort of boxing. Um, and I suppose Coventry, there wasn't as many there. There was maybe half that because obviously the distance, it's so far, and it was so hard to get to on public transport too. Um, there wasn't as many, but there was still, my close friends, family, and supporters. Really, yeah,
It's great to hear. We'll touch on that pro debut. Obviously, went to a points victory. How did you sort of feel going into that? You only get one pro debut. Were there a lot of nerves, do you think, or?
yeah. I think there was a lot of nerves because I think GBM did their job perfectly. I mean, they hyped me up. They got everyone interested in me, and I think that did affect me. It did make me quite nervous on the day, to be fair. Especially because it was the whole sort of you only get one debut, and also the sort of one loss in the pro game, and especially when you debut and it's all sort of over before it begins. So I suppose that was in my mind. Um, yeah, and then I suppose just the experience, everything felt like it was a first for me. So the ring walk, the bright lights, it all felt new. So it was just trying to take everything in my stride and yeah, conquer the nerves.
Do you feel like GBM have put an expectation sort of thing on yourself? They obviously want you to go far in the game, and they're backing you from your pro debut. Do you feel that expectation?
But yeah, I suppose, but I don't think it's unjustified. They signed me because they know what I can do. So now I just have to go and do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. You talk about the bright lights and the ring walk and the way and everything. That's something that you're gonna get used to. You've had a couple of fights in a couple of months. Are you starting to sort of get used to all the interviews and the things you have to do in the lead up to a fight?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, in the second fight just gone, that's my sort of comparison, obviously, because I only done it twice. But it felt very comfortable this time. There were no nerves. Um, it was just go another fight, and it just felt normal, to be honest.
In contrast to the first fight, how pleased were you with the performance in the second fight?
Yeah, as well. I mean, it ended the way you wanted to end, didn't it? So I'm happy with the way it ended. Obviously, there's a lot of improvements I can still make within the sort of time that happened before the knockout. Um, but yeah, like I went in there, we had a plan, and I executed the plan. We knew what he was. We'd seen him fight a few times, and we knew his weaknesses, so we just went and exploited that.
I think I saw a video of yourself from post-fight doing some interviews and having a little look at that knockout for the first time back on the camera. It was a pretty sweet
Yeah,
one, wasn't it?
yeah, it was a good one. It was a good one. It was, yeah. I mean, it was. I couldn't be asked for anything more. It was the perfect ending, really.
Absolutely. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier that GBM has now signed a deal with the Zone. That means a little bit of extra spotlight for their fighters. It means they're going to be able to put on bigger shows. Look, that's a really exciting time for GBM, but it's great for the fighters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the day I signed, there was always rumbles and whispers that they were going to do a big deal with somebody, but it was never really said who. But I mean, when it came out, it was DAZN. I mean, it couldn't have worked out better, really. It's the perfect platform. It's probably the biggest platform, and like I say, it's just an exciting future for GBM, and I'm happy to be with them.
What's your relationship like with Izzy, who's obviously the main promoter there? He's not from too far away in Sheffield.
Yeah, I didn't know him until I obviously started talking business with the company, but he's sound as a pound. You know what I mean? He's when you stay in when you have these fight weekends, you stay in the hotel and you're in the same hotel as Izzy and stuff. So you do talk to him in passing, you talk to him at dinner, stuff like that, and he's the nicest guy you'll meet. Do you know what I mean? There's no ego there. He's just a nice, calm fella, and he was a boxer. You can tell he loves boxing. Yeah, he's just a good man. He's a good man, as well as all of them. You know, Al Siesta again, good man. They're all good men.
Obviously, you say that Izzy was obviously a pro boxer in his day. He's been around the game a long time. You look at the top promoters in this country, Eddie, Frank, yeah, even the Sauerland, Ben Shalom, they've not got that experience in the ring. What would you say from the conversations you've had with him that sort of adds to a promoter?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. I suppose in my perspective, in my opinion, I suppose it means that he might know almost how to take care of the fighters better because he's been one, if that makes sense. But apart from that, I mean, I'm not too sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just satisfied. I talked to him as a good guy. You know, there's not much more I can say.
Fair enough. It's a big time in the heavyweight division. There's some huge fights coming up just around the corner. And I have to ask you about a couple of them. Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois now. That's made, that's official for September 21st at Wembley. A huge fight. Just first thoughts, how do you see that fight playing out?
Yeah, massive fight, massive fight. It's cool that it's going to be in England too, isn't it? So that's real cool. Um, but I think, well, I mean, I'm probably biased. I'm a Joshua fan, but I think Joshua beats him. I think he probably knocks him out. Um, I think if you look at like you're only as good as your last performance, right? So if you look at Dubois' last performance against Hrgovic, he ate about 100 backhands in the first couple rounds, and I think if Joshua lands that same backhand, he's probably fight over.
From what you've seen of Daniel Dubois, I think there's an argument, well, there's more than an argument. He's made some significant improvements under Don Charles in the Jarrell Miller fight and then in the Hrgovic fight, been able to come through that. Do you think he's closed the gap to Joshua?
I don't know, man. I'm not sure. I think 'cause obviously Dubois, he's big, he's strong, he can box, but I don't know. I just feel like he hasn't got that thing that Joshua has got. But I can't really put a name on it. But yeah, they just seem a bit like a class apart, in my opinion.
We saw they had a bit of a sit down, a bit of a head to head, and
Yeah.
Daniel Dubois made his feelings known. He said he's not scared of Anthony Joshua, and they nearly had it out way before and a number of months before the fight. I mean, was that strange to see from Daniel Dubois? We're not used to that from him.
I don't know. It was all quite funny. It was all quite entertaining. Um, I don't know Daniel. I don't know Joshua, so I can't really speak on what it's like for them. But all I can say is that I was entertained by it. I love it. It was a good watch. You know what I mean? I think it builds a lot of excitement for the fight as well. Fights with a bit of needle always better, aren't they?
Yeah, and that needle is something that we haven't seen too much from AJ over the last few fights. We saw a real sort of steel in his eyes during that face-off. Is that something you feel will can add something extra to the AJ armory?
I hope so. I hope so, man. It's good to watch win. And when AJ's win, let's be honest, when AJ's winning, boxing's at its best in this country. Boxing is where it is in this country because of AJ. So I hope it adds to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a little bit closer away, just a couple of weeks away now, is Derek Chisora facing Joyce. Two fighters probably at the back end of their careers. Maybe a fact of winner stays on. Do you see it that way or?
I mean, I don't know, man, because they're both the type of fighters, man. They just take hard fights, and everyone's a fan of both of them because they never say no, and they're always in the right war of like a big tear up, aren't they? So I think both of them could probably continue even if they lose, just because everyone's detained by them.
Yeah, certainly some fight. How do you see that one playing out? Which way do you see it balancing?
Well, I don't have a clue. I do not know. Either I think either Joyce will stop Chisora late by pressure, or Joyce will get flatlined by Chisora. But I don't know which way it will go.
It's certainly a 50-50 fight. In terms of yourself, I mean, you've been out pretty regularly at the start of your career. Are we hoping to have some more fight news soon?
Yeah, real soon. Fighting you really, really soon. I can't really say much more, but yeah, very soon.
That's good to hear. Arlo, really appreciate your time, mate. And yeah, hopefully with that get that date in the diary soon, mate.
But thank you very much.